What's up, world? What's up, internet? I'm Deanna Jean Pierce, and this is my Autistic Integrity account. And in this video, I want to talk about autism, like being neurodivergent, and waiting tables, being a server, a waiter, a waitress, making money from, like restaurant work, essentially. In my experience, what I feel is that a lot of people who are neurodivergent or on the autism spectrum gravitate towards waiting tables as either a full-time job or just a way to support themselves, because working at a restaurant usually is less hours per week. You usually are not expected to work a 40-hour-a-week position. Waiting tables, you usually work between like 20 and 32 hours a week, and you can even work less. It's extremely flexible, but you can still make a lot of money. Shifts are only usually like 4 or 5 hours versus 8 hours. And so you don't have to put as much time and energy in, but the payout is so much bigger, because if you're doing a good job and you're tipping well, people are tipping well, and you're willing to hustle, you can make a lot of money, as opposed to having to work 40 hours a week, week after week after week, in like a cubicle, and make a set amount of money. When you wait tables, especially if it's a busy restaurant, and especially if you're willing to hustle and be a really good server, and you're also utilizing like law of attraction, you can make bank without having to work 40 hours a week. Also, autistic people can sometimes get really frustrated, overwhelmed, and unhealthy in an office setting. And when you are working at a restaurant, you're constantly on your feet, walking around all the time, which actually is pretty healthy for you. And it gives you your daily exercise. I know that the times that I've worked in restaurants, I have lost weight because I'm always running around doing stuff. Now, do I want to be waiting tables at this stage in my life? No, absolutely not. To me, it's really stressful, chaotic, too loud, overwhelming. But previously in my life, I have gravitated a lot towards waiting tables. And now that I've learned more about autism and neurodivergence, I understand, because I find it extremely hard to work the typical 40 hours a week for very long without hitting extreme burnout. So, and once again, like, as far as earning potential, people love going out to eat, and people generally are very nice and generous. And once again, if you're utilizing the law of attraction and you're doing a good job, you can make a lot of money. You still can burn out waiting tables, like it does happen. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that I feel like people end up waiting tables a lot when they're neurodivergent, because it's not as massive as a commitment as other career paths, and you can like you have more time in your life, because shifts are not that long typically. And I know some restaurants can schedule you for long shifts, but sometimes, you can always like speak up and say, hey, I can't work a 7 or 8 hour shift. It's too much for me. And they usually have like morning shifts and evening shifts, which are only like 3 to 5 hours. And I know also from my experience that, a lot of times when I would feel burnt out and tired, I would notice that God wouldn't send so many people into the restaurant almost to kind of give me a break, and so, or like I'd be sent home or cut early on the days that I was tired. and burnt out, I noticed. And so you're able to utilize the law of attraction and your free will more in a restaurant gig because of the flexibility it offers, versus if you're locked into a 40-hour-a-week career, unless you're sick and you get a doctor's note or you have PTO, you're not really going to be able to be like, oh, I'm burnt out, I'm going to go home early today. That doesn't really cut it in most normal jobs. And so I think with autistic people and burnout and sustainability, I think that sometimes it's easier to work at restaurants. It's just something I've noticed. Yeah. So that was just like kind of something I was thinking about. Do you have that experience too? Like, have you, as an autistic person, have you found that waiting tables sometimes feels better because it's more flexible and less hours and you're on your feet? Of course, then there's also other things to think about, like, am I getting to work on my passions all day? But then, when you work at a restaurant and you're only working, like, let's say 32 hours a week, but you're making more money than someone who's locked in at an office job making, doing 40 hours a week and making less money because you're being tipped more. Like, just for example, if you're working in a busy restaurant in like a city, or even a really popular restaurant in a smaller town, if you work the weekends and you're willing to hustle on the weekends, you could come away with so much more money than if you like I said, you're locked into 40 hours a week, and you're stuck in that rhythm and you're actually making less money overall because you have a set hourly rate. It's something I've been thinking about. I know that me and my husband Dan, we've both gravitated towards restaurant work a lot throughout our lives. We're not doing that anymore right now. And I don't think it's ideal forever, but at the same time, if you need to make money and you burn out easily and you're autistic and you want to work on your passions in your free time and have more time, I would recommend find like a busy restaurant and see if you can work less hours. Yeah, I'm kind of rambly right now. It's just something I'm thinking about right now. So yeah, let me know what your thoughts are, and have a good day.